My name is Sydney Landry, and my topic of minimum wage falls under economic and governmental issues. In 1933, Franklin Roosevelt implemented the Fair Labor Act, otherwise known as minimum wage. Minimum wage is defined as the lowest hourly wage that an employer can legally pay its employees. Minimum wage laws protect low-level employees from being taken advantage of and also being overworked and underpaid. People who are paid this low wage usually fall in marginalized groups such as minorities, women, and disabled people. The federal minimum wage is a fixed amount, however, individual states often impose their own minimum wage laws set higher than the federal government. This is because cost of living is higher in some states than it is in others. The government has a long past with increasing minimum wage. In 1949, the first wage of 40 cents was raised to 75 cents. This was, of course, whenever the cost of living was significantly lower compared to modern times. The most recent increase occurred in 2009, when it was raised from $6.55 to $7.25 hourly. For the past 11 years, the minimum wage rate has been stagnant. In 2014, President Obama signed an order in an attempt to raise the wage from $7.25 to $10.10 hourly. He believed times were more advanced and an increase would help the economy. His order was not passed, unfortunately, and $7.25 hourly still continues to stand. There has been much information passed about a potential increase that's much higher than Obama's original plan. The legislation is backed by Bernie Sanders, Patty Murray, and 28 other Democratic senators. If put into effect, the new federal minimum wage would be raised to $15 an hour. This increase would be following in the steps of California and New York, which are both known for a high cost of living. These states are also known to be more people-oriented and left-leaning politically. There's no set laws in effect for this $15 an hour increase yet because President Trump is vocal about his plans to keep minimum wage where it is currently. If there is any confusion on the topic, I am in favor of raising minimum wage significantly. It should be increased with the federal law impacting the entire United States. Franklin Delano Roosevelt's Fair Labor Act went into effect in 1933, and minimum wage was set in order for all people to be able to survive on a set wage. He believed that businesses that were not able to comply, not willing, or able to pay their workers enough to survive in that climate should not continue. With inflation, minimum wage must continue to go up in order to be considered a wage for a decent living. Inflation can be described as the natural and often general increase of goods and services. When inflation is at a high point, more money is put into the economy from consumers due to the high prices. I say all this to say that the current minimum wage is not in line with the current inflation rate. The prices of goods and services have increased dramatically, but the set minimum amount of money a person is expected to live off of hasn't moved at all. So since the value of items has increased, it would make sense for the value of workers to go up as well. Working for a federal minimum wage in America while also trying to survive on your own or alone is difficult and requires anyone in that position to budget effectively and extremely. With a fair increase, people would be more likely to spend this extra money on more goods and services for themselves, and more consumer spending is in turn beneficial for the entire and overall economy. More money in the economy can create economic growth as well. An increase would also prove successful for business owners and corporations. Employees may enjoy their job more and be willing to put up with more difficulties and setbacks if the wage was more. Worker productivity would increase because people would feel more valued with an increased wage. There would be less turnover in these businesses because of the higher wage and willingness of the employees to work, and people would value a job more if they feel valued at said job. Many who oppose raising minimum wage often bring up a 2012 article explaining that a wage increase would contribute to higher prices of goods and services for all consumers. A 2007 article also falls under the same lines, explaining that the potential restaurant prices altogether would increase with a wage increase. Both are true, however, they tend to be a little exaggerated. A projected 10% increase in minimum wage is thought to only raise food prices by about 4%. This is a natural increase and not something to really worry about. A 10% increase in wage would be a fair trade for a 4% price raise in goods and services. A minimum wage increase is assumed to put low-skilled workers at a disadvantage is another argument that people against minimum wage use, and the data gathered from this specific article is operating off of an unfair sample size. The article attempted to make the point that New York's wage increase resulted in a drop in employment for those lacking higher education. New York is the single most populated city in the United States, and native New Yorkers, as well as those that are new to the city, make up such a dense population. The job market competition is higher, solely based on the location. There are more people competing for jobs, so people with less education are more likely to lose out on those opportunities by default. Because the salary is higher, there are more people going after these opportunities in turn, and the statistic had little to do with the issue at hand and more to do with the amount of job competition, which is solely a normal amount of job competition in New York. It is common for people to also use the argument of the original benchmark. When the minimum wage laws first went into effect, a projection chart was created in an attempt to track the assumed raises of minimum wage as the years go on, based on potential inflation and increased purchasing power. The current $7.25 an hour wage is 85 cents above the original benchmark for this year. Inflation was wildly underpredicted on the original benchmark. In this case, the benchmark did not predict correctly, and inflation has taken over the economy, and because of this, it is important that the wage be raised accordingly at this point. Another counter-argument would be the potential increased taxes complaint. Obviously, the money must come from somewhere, so that money doesn't lose any of its value. So the increased tax scare is a normal and valid concern. However, it is exaggerated in most sources. The taxes would come from those who make more than the average American, the 1%, if you will. So people benefiting from an increased wage and other lower income individuals should not have to worry about the tax raise too much, considering the percentage of taxes owed should not make a huge impact in their salary. Increasing minimum wage for all receiving it would have a huge positive impact on the economy because of the increased money moving into it. It will all even out in the economy, although there is more money going out. Raising prices and taxes will combat against a huge inflation. All people deserve to work for a living wage that one can survive off of. Minimum wage isn't only for teens who need extra spending money at all. It never was, and many attempt to raise children and pay bills with the current small hourly wage. The original point of minimum wage was to ensure that all Americans, including those that lack specific skills and education, could make a living for themselves with solely one income. At the current rate of $7.25, it's nearly impossible for people to live comfortably and without any outside financial help. So minimum wage should be increased to help those who are currently struggling daily. Please strongly consider my points and my argument. Thank you for listening.